Natasha, did anything that Mehdi Hassan say or Gideon Levy say surprise you?
The general content, no. I mean, there were occasions on which Gideon, I think, went further than he had even dared on previous occasions. At one point, he referred to Israel as the most brutal regime in the world. And I think the audience knew full well what to do with that. Gideon has, in previous interviews, acknowledged that you could fit the people who agree with him in Israel inside a phone booth. So he's certainly not reflective of any public opinion in Israel. He very much represents the extreme fringe in every possible manifestation of that term. And unfortunately, we have seen Medhi Hassan present himself as the archetypal anti-Zionist, especially since the 7th of October, and use these appalling developments and that tragedy as a platform to continue his vicious bile and misrepresentations against the Jewish state. So in many respects, it was a carefully curated, I think, debate by Munk to put this issue on trial in a way that I think has I hope, certainly put the matter to bed. Obviously, that's very much informed by the current circumstances, but an awful lot of, at least what I tried to address in the context of my opening, was rooting the anti-Zionist propaganda in the context of the modern blood libels. I talked about ethnic cleansing, apartheid, and also about genocide. And I'm afraid we didn't get the opportunity to get on in the course of the debate to the libels of occupation and many, many others that the opposition put forward. But in the context of understanding that it is these falsehoods and these modern blood libels that underpin the anti-Zionist philosophy, I think it's even clearer that this is the updated form of the ancient blood libel, and therefore very much a form of anti-Semitism, which needs to be called out.
And you also called out Mehdi Hassan, what should we call it, as a liar, when he misrepresented the quote of Arthur Balfour, tried to present him as an anti-Semite. I don't know how you happen to have the full quote at your desk, so to speak. But viewers, if you can't watch the entire debate, please watch Natasha's opening statement, her response to Mehdi Hassan's attempt to mischaracterize Arthur Balfour, and her closing statement, and of course the same for Douglas Murray. Just one other question on the debate, and I'd like to move on then, Natasha, but I know in my own career, we sometimes had this debate among ourselves. How much legitimacy should we confer on people that we consider otherwise illegitimate? Should Gideon Levy appear on the same stage or not with mainstream figures? And but in the Jewish world, spent 32 years not appearing on stage with Gideon Levy, or not having him on any AJC stage either. And I probably would have done the same with Mehdi Hassan. This was different. But did you have any second thoughts or hesitations before?
It's always a question, and I think a valid one to assess on a case-by-case basis. Often this comes up in the context of, individuals that vocally support terror organizations or otherwise have links to terror. And I think in the past, I have always drawn a very firm line with respect to those sorts of situations. Here, it was presented to me as a debate that was going ahead in the context of the other three speakers taking part. And I think that made my decision certainly an awful lot easier, because these are individuals on the opposition, Gideon and Medhi, that are platformed, whether it's appropriate or not. And in that context, I think it's all the more important that they are called out. the Balfour quote wasn't the only reason that I had called Medhi Hassan a liar. There was a great deal of, in fact, he returned the compliment. Unfortunately, it wasn't on an issue that I hadn't actually spoken about, and another clear indication that he wasn't listening to what it was that Douglas or I were talking about in the context of that debate, but simply rattling off the same tropes, the same blood libels, and the same falsehoods. But in a context where there is so much misinformation being put out by individuals like those that represented the opposition last week, understanding all of the concerns and the hesitations one might have of lending extremists like that a voice, it's extremely important to challenge their falsehoods. And I think where people feel in a position that there is a need to do so, then it's important to take those opportunities. I mean, we had an instance here in the United Kingdom where, because of the late notice of a parliamentary committee to do with, if you can believe it, the support for an arms embargo on Israel, I was faced with a situation not quite as you describe, but where there was a former justice of the Supreme Court here in the United Kingdom providing evidence in support, not just of an arms embargo against Israel, but also of a misrepresentation of the International Court of Justice's Provisional Measures Order, the first one that was made on the 26th of January. And I was faced with a choice of allowing those misrepresentations to go ahead unchallenged, or despite the significant imbalance in experience and reputation, taking up the opportunity to provide the counter to a former justice of the Supreme Court, Lord Sumption. As a junior member of the bar myself, the optics of that were perhaps somewhat less than ideal, but the importance of providing the counter and actually putting forth the accurate and factual position was hugely significant, because less than 30 hours later, the president of the International Court of Justice, who had made the order upon which Lord Sumption and I were disagreeing, and in fact vindicated every single word that I said. So more often than not, I think it's important to take up the opportunities to counter the misinformation and ensure that individuals who are being platformed to spread falsehoods do not enjoy those platforms by themselves.
Natasha, if I may, would you please delete the word junior from your self-description?
Thanks for watching. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Until next time, stay informed and inspired. This is Dejobnik signing off.